Welcome to the CFAA Film Talk. This is, I think, our 7th episode. We are rocking and rolling and creating conversations with some of the industry's most talented people. And we're incorporating always a little bit of a twist of incorporating one of their peers or their connections to their industry life in the interview too. So it's been a lot of fun. One of the things that we were doing, the Capital Film Arts Alliance, which is, for those of you who don't know, a nonprofit film association for filmmakers, writers, and actors in the Sacramento region. We have been hosting weekly meetings and workshops, co-sponsoring events and film festivals, having all kinds of in-person activities in addition to publishing a weekly newsletter. And then, of course, COVID came and shut us down. And so we have now pivoted. I know, I hate that word too, swear to God. But that's what we've done because we wanted to create a way to connect with the film community, not only here in the Sacramento and surrounding regions, but all over. We all, as independent filmmakers, are looking to gain the same information and to learn the same skills and to really find ways to create communities, because that's how we grow the business. We're in a growth mode here in Sacramento. We've had some incredible speakers on the CFAA Film Talk, and tonight is an example of a couple more and a different subject. So I hope that you guys are interested in hearing what they have to say. I will tell you that I had a marathon phone conversation with both of them yesterday, meaning to just check in, see how things are going, and literally talked from the time that Chris ate his lunch until he was getting called for dinner. So it was a long conversation, and we slayed a lot of dragons, and we talked a lot of talk that helped us kind of come to some real great ideas about where we are and what we need to do, not just in this community, but as independent filmmakers and actors all over. So tonight, we are honored to bring you a couple of different people. First of all, they're Dennis Glasco, who is a well-known and treasured and well-respected individual in the Sacramento region, who's been an acting coach and an actor for a very long time. Most of the people that I know that are really truly gifted and dedicated to their craft have a connection to Dennis Glasco. So I think that has to say something about who he is, and how, as Christopher Michael Holley is our second guest, that Dennis is going to spend some time peeling the onion back on a little bit, because they've been friends from the very beginning. Dennis has been Chris's acting coach, and as his career has kind of trajectoried into, going from local commercials to short films to feature films, and all the way to Hollywood series, episodic television, and feature films that had theatrical release. He's really touched a little bit of everything, but he also stays here. He's dedicated to the region. He stays in Sacramento and is involved in a job at the Capitol that has kept him entertained, I'm sure, for a very long time, if nothing else. And he's managed to, have a foot in both sides, as many of you do as actors who are living in a region like this, where you have to be able to wait for the jobs to come around. And so, we all have a lot in common when it comes to bringing more work to Sacramento, giving people the opportunity to grow their skills and their careers. And the CFAA Film Talk and the guests that we have, like these two guys, are really our way of exploring what can we do as a community and what can we do collectively to really grow this region. Starts by getting to know each other. So I want to bring on Dennis Glasco. Boom!
Hey.
There you are.
How's it going?
Hey. It's going great. I'm pretending that we didn't, talk all day yesterday.
What? I don't know what you're talking about. We did not talk for 5 hours yesterday. I don't know what you're talking about.
I know how much you weighed when you were born. I think we got into that kind of conversation.
I think we're spent though, so I don't think there's anything else to talk about. So.
Yeah, no, I had so much fun. I couldn't, and as a matter of fact, I got on the phone and I thought, ooh, we got to put those boys to work because they can do some cool stuff together. So yeah, I want Dennis, and then Dennis and I are going to introduce Chris Holley. We can go ahead and pop him on.
What?
Hey!
What's up?
Hey, long time no hear.
No.
Actually, long time no see.
I know.
You've got a little going on there.
Yeah, quarantine and COVID, lets the natural man go out.
Yeah, I can relate a little bit.
There you go. That's that wisdom on that chin.
Some snow.
There you go. I call it wisdom.
Hey, I love that book. Just keep that thing trimmed, and the ladies are,
I'm gonna try to get it to like ZZ Top level. So
there you go.
It's gonna take a while.
There it goes.
I'm probably not gonna do that. I can't back that up.
Dennis, you're too cute. So I am so honored to have both of you guys here. Dennis has been our guest at the CFAA Actors Workshop, which we're doing every month, several times. And every time we had him, we had people that had nothing but really wonderful things to say, and people that are his students that I'm sure, as a matter of fact, we are on Facebook Live. Yeah. And so for the next, whatever amount of time, hopefully not 5 hours, because that was a little ridiculous.
Facebook will ban us.
We'll condense it.
Right.
Come in, lots of comments. People are, somebody recognized Chris Laird. I think he's drinking water. It's not a Moscow Mule.
Yeah. That's the nutritional stuff.
I am drinking water.
Do not confirm nor
nutritional for me. Like, yeah, I'm gonna say it's water from Lake Minnetonka. Okay, how about that? You guys are good with that one?
As Kathleen said last week, I cannot confirm nor deny.
Exactly.
And she's nodding her head. Yes. So yeah, if we have questions that come in, if you guys have any questions for these guys specifically, there's a lot of comments and hi, I love your beard. But you have to, stick them up there. We will definitely be speaking them out to these guys. But what I wanted to do, really, and the cool thing about this is that these guys have known each other forever. They're like brothers. Yeah. They go back. Being able to kind of be a part of their conversation where they not only share their own stories, but they share what they know about each other's stories. It gives us a really cool inside look. And we really appreciate you guys letting us kind of listen in, because really that's what this is about. So
no, this is good stuff.
If you would do me a favor, I mean, again, our whole point is let's, find a way to grow what we have and let people know what talent we have in the region. And in order to be part of, the cream of the crop that's going to rise to the top, understanding what it's going to take. And these guys have been there and they've seen it in a lot of different areas, so they can share great information with you. Mm-hmm. So I want you guys to start with, if you would tell a little bit about yourself, and then Dennis, introduce what you know about Chris. And
well, I'll say the things that he'll allow me to say.
There you go.
Did I have to do a disclaimer? Was this the one I needed to do a disclaimer?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can do a disclaimer for you. If you're really, really sensitive, you're probably going to be fine. But don't be sensitive.
You'll live.
Yeah. You'll live, but we're going to speak truth.
Yeah.
Actually, well, first of all, if it's okay, let me just say thank you, Lori, for number one, just even, being able to put this together and the passion that you have behind all this stuff. I think it's great. And we need this kind of stuff. Right. And I know Chris agrees with this, is that we need to have some sort of centralized way to educate actors and people in the industry. And I know that you are like, you work so hard to try and organize stuff and get things going. And so, thanks. I appreciate it. And I think that it's going to blossom into something really awesome. So, so you guys should all be paying attention to the CFAA stuff. So.
Oh, thank you.
And organizing all this stuff, I think is great. So,
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I don't believe you, but I don't. But you know what? Everyone has their calling. It's not my calling. But if it's
Lori's
fun
an
for
angel.
you, if it's fun for you, then awesome. Like I could never be a doctor, because it's like that's just not in my wheelhouse.
I was a producer. And a producer is all about herding cats.
Yeah, that is true.
It's all about herding cats, basically.
Herding cats and lizards, yeah. But I gotta say that Chris is a lot of people don't know. I mean, I've known Chris. We go way back, at least 20 years, something like that. Back to the 90s.
Over 20 years.
Yeah, back to the 90s. And he's I have to, if I was to put Chris into a nutshell of as far as the acting industry around here goes, I would say that Chris is a great example of being one of the hardest working people in the acting business that I even know. This guy, I don't know if he ever sleeps. I'm not sure if he has like some sort of like drug that he's taking that allows him to just stay awake all the time or what.
Energy shot.
There's times when it's like, I know that he's got to be somewhere early in the morning, but I know he's like talking to people till like 3 a.m. And I was like, what? But he's balancing all this stuff and making it work. And it's because he has a work ethic. And that's something that I saw when I first met him, which, I could tell that story a little bit. But the thing I want to say about Chris is he is, I call him my younger, better looking twin brother. And like if I were to put glasses on right now, you probably wouldn't be able to tell us apart. But
there you go.
Right now, he's wearing glasses and a yellow shirt.
Copy with glasses.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Exactly. So he went from a student of mine to being a great friend, and that's also something that I've shared with many people. But as far as like, there's always that close circle of people, especially in the industry, that you can trust. And he is one of those people,
Right on,
he keeps it real,
both ways.
He doesn't mess around. He doesn't, waste time, and this guy is a generous guy, and he does everything he can to try and help other people, especially actors. And I've seen people try to take advantage of him. I've seen people try to get to him through other people, such as you, maybe even me. It's like, hey, can you introduce me to Chris? And and Chris knows what this is like. So yes, I experience the same thing that you experience on a higher level sometimes, So, but yeah, I mean, I was teaching a class back in the 90s. I was teaching an acting class, and it was a class for kids because we didn't have our full adult division set up yet, and we were working on that. But my boss at the time, the lady that I was working for, she comes up to me, Kathy, and she goes, hey, I've got this guy he's really interested. He's chomping at the bit. He really wants to know, about acting and on camera stuff. And, would it be okay do you think it's okay to put him in a class? And I'm like, yeah, let's see how real he is. Acting, yeah. So you can imagine this. What are you, like 5'10"? Are you 5'10" or 6 foot something? 6 foot, 6 foot tall guy in this class with, kids that are, probably up to his belly button.
Yeah,
And
that really happened. That's how we started.
And it grew from there. It grew into
Great
now he's
relationship.
doing Hollywood productions and everything else. So, and we've been great friends, ever since that time. And you were even in my failed wedding party.
Yep.
He was one of my groomsmen.
Yes, I was.
And so hey, you know what, man? I'm super proud of this guy. I'm proud to be his friend. I'm proud to be a mentor, if I can even call myself that at this point. Now it's almost reversed.
You're
So
still teaching me stuff, D.
and so Chris Holley, you guys, I mean, this guy is amazing, and I'm super thanks so much for being one of the few that actually reaches back, by the way.
Thank you, brother. And I want to thank both of you. Lori, like I said before, you're like an angel in Sacramento.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you keep the gown white and clean with all the. I'm trying to stay PG-13 with all the crap that you have to deal with. But it's inspiring. I was really glad that we had that conversation yesterday, because it painted a different picture, because it's been so long that we've wanted movement and growth, and now Sacramento is starting to experience it. And even though it's unfortunate right now with COVID happening, the ball's still bouncing. Conversations are still being had. There's still movement.
Mm-hmm. So
I'll always have love for you, girl. So anytime you call, I'll answer. And D, you my brother from another mother, brother. So it's always good. But yeah, I remember those early days when a brother had hair on top of his head, and not so much coming out the bottom. But it was just that moment. I think there's certain moments that define a path, and I think it could have been easy for me to look in that classroom and see a whole bunch of 8 and 9-year-olds and teenagers and being like, dude, what am I doing? But I was like, well, this is what I got. This is what I'm starting. So
yeah,
that's how we got rolling. And man, just over the years, that's why when I tell people about you, people come and ask me like, what should I do? Who's somebody that you can recommend? It's always been Dennis Glasco, because even to this day, I bounce stuff off of him. I prepare for roles with him. I do auditions. I prepare for auditions with him. So I think like he's the golden egg of SAC. I don't know why a lot of people don't tap into him as much as I have, but I do know other, successful actors and comedians that I referred to Dennis, and they've always had nothing but praise and learned a lot from him. So, hats off to you, brother. Keep teaching.
Thanks, man.
Keep helping people understand the business.
I keep it real.
Yeah, that's why I said that last. I was like, help them understand the business.
Yeah.
A lot of people have a perception of it, and they don't really understand it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that might lend to why some people tend to not follow through, because they realize, oh, wait a minute, there's work.
Right.
Hold it.
They thought they just.
I'm really, really good looking.
Yeah, I'm pretty, and I can say words. So how come I'm not opposite Denzel right now?
Yeah, exactly.
For me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, the Noxzema girl did it.
Yep.
I was like, nah.
So, do you remember the first thing that Dennis taught you, or one of the first things with you?
Just the presence of when you're first getting up in front of an audition and not speeding up the words. Like, acting isn't memorization; it's bringing words to life. I think that was one of the things, and what's fun is because I was with a bunch of kids, and it was like the first time they're going to get in front of class to do a book report, and it was just a lot of held breath and da 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 da. And Dennis would just smile and be like, well, that's exactly what you that's what the script says, but that's not how you
That's
deliver.
what it says.
Yeah, that's not how you deliver lines. And so
Right.
I think it was good that I was with those little kids in the beginning, because it really kind of helped me understand, like, that first concept, that you're bringing words to life, like you're communicating something, and these words mean something. So if you don't put any meaning into the words, it's hard. And I think that's prevalent in our area with people who just want to get started in acting because they think it's memorization, and it's not that. And the more advanced you get, and when people have opportunities to go on cold reads, you're grabbing concepts. You don't have to say things word for word. And then when you get to another level, it's very rarely that they're word for word. And then you're dealing with like heavyweights who will go off script. I think the first time that ever threw me was Ed Norton on Pride and Glory, where I was just like, what the hell are you talking about, bro? Like, this isn't anything that we rehearsed.
This isn't in the script.
Right. And so, and the thing is, if it's organic, you go with it. And so it was cool that we could keep the meaning of the scene that we were doing and still get back on script. Like, I trusted him to lead me somewhere, and he trusted me to follow him and kind of bring it back. Mm-hmm. So in the development, and like, I used to point people to a scene in I think it's American Gangster with Denzel and Russell Crowe. If you're ever able to see the script version of a particular scene when he's finally arrested, Denzel's character, the dialogue between them is nothing on paper. And it was brilliantly done, but it was the concept and the way they had beats and the energy they had. And like, it was two formidable people. Like, one was the criminal, one was the justice. And it was like a mutual respect. And when you see two heavyweights like sharing that organic production that they have, and then still be at the end of like the sixth page, they bring it right back. And they keep it going. It's brilliant. And sometimes I think that's where some people who kind of wish, they had more success sooner, it's a development. And I think, I learned one of those foundation principles from Dennis. Like, it's really bringing words to life. And that's where it might be a feeling, and you might not feel comfortable saying, or might not feel natural saying a certain word. And it's like, nah, I wouldn't say it like that, or I don't think the character would say it like that. And most directors will give you that flexibility, but sometimes you get directors that want a word for word, and you got a job to do.
Right. So you still have to know your lines.
Yes, you are still.
Don't anybody out there think that you're just going to become some, rogue and just going to rewrite the script.
This is what I want to say.
Yeah.
Let's step back and talk about reading filters and understanding when it's appropriate to interject your own ideas in an audition, and when it's not appropriate.
Well, I mean, Dennis has probably sat in more auditions than I have, but
I've done a few.
My experience, or when I've had successful times, it's usually at the inclination of the person, or the casting director, producers, or agents that are on the other side of the table. They'll ask, like, "Hey, do you have any questions?" And it's really important. And it lets them know if you've done any type of research on your character. And that's where I try to tell beginning actors, is like, no matter how small your character is, if they put that out there, like, "Hey, do you have any questions about this character?" It's important to have questions, and don't ask stupid questions. If you don't have any questions, don't ask them. But if you're like, "Hey, what is this relationship to the main character? Are these people, are they friends? How far back do they go?" And then that shows, the people casting you a level of professionalism that you take in this role seriously, even if it's a supporting role, or even if it's a 5 and under. Like, I've done that on 5 and unders in the Bay Area, and they've been like floored by it. They're like, "Man, Chris, you asked some really good questions. Thank you. That really helps us." And then it kind of sets the tone.
Mhm.
And then when you go into the character and you whatever decisions that I've made for that particular role, they see it after having that conversation. And so even if you think you're taking a risk, those opportunities when a casting director or a director or producer might ask you like, well, why did you choose to do this? Or why do you see him this way? And then you have to give an explanation. Because that goes back to Dennis and his teaching. Dennis always taught us that when you rehearse, you should have 3 different ways of giving this character. And so,
At least.
at least
Yeah.
3. And, in the beginning, it was just really, as far as my evolution in that lesson was maybe I put a beat in or I sped up some words and I slowed down other words. And then it evolved into a reflection or the intensity of a word. But mainly what it showed the casting director or the people who are interviewing is that you can take direction, because the worst thing that you see when somebody goes in and they do an audition, and unfortunately if they're young and inexperienced and they just memorized it, they might say, okay, that was great, show me something else. And then they end up doing it exactly how they did it the first time, and it's like, yeah, that was good, I got that. Now
Got that the first time.
Yeah, show me something else, and they're stuck. And so, and I've been in at all levels where I've heard them, hey, Chris, I like this up until this point, and at this point, can you get a little bit more angry, or can you ease up a little bit? I'm like, yeah, no problem, and then you do it. But that comes from experience. But some people with inexperience, they get uncomfortable because they're like, wait, you want me to what? And they're completely thrown off. So even if you don't do it exactly how they've done it, if you just take that one lesson from Dennis, like, hey, I'm going to do it another way. And even though I'm not going to be more intense, I'm just going to, because I rehearsed it this way, you're giving them something different.
Yeah, at least you have something there in the bag,
Right. So
now that doesn't take the place of improv, but it's something that you're familiar with.
And I definitely would recommend improv for every actor, because it helps. It just helps in scenes, like to be able to use all the space that you have available to you.
I mean, I'm sure there's times when you've been asked to just improvise a scene.
Oh yeah,
with no lines. Have you ever had that? Have you ever had it where the casting director or the director has just come up and just said, you know what, let's just go ahead and forget about the script?
Joe Carnahan was the first one to do that to me. And, he called it, and it's actually really effective when you see some pretty cool stuff, some organic stuff that happens.
Yeah.
He calls it the actor free take. And no, Andy Garcia was the first one to tell me what it was. Joe was the first person to do it. And he was just like, okay, we're going to do it. No lines. Just, we're going to go off of how you guys feeling this. And I was like, what the fuck is going on right now? And then Andy Garcia was on set, and he was just like, Chris, it's actor's free take. Let's just really get into the energy of it.
Yeah, have fun with it.
I think him and Ryan Reynolds almost killed each other by the end of the scene. But Joe was laughing. He was like, I got some good stuff, because and if you guys haven't seen Smoking Aces, I don't feel bad for ruining it for you. It's the movie's over 10 years old.
Yeah,
but
go
there
see
was a scene where Andy Garcia has to tell basically Ryan Reynolds' character that they knew all along what was going on, and they needed to get this asset back because it was more valuable to the FBI than in other people's hands. And Ryan was pissed off because his partner, who was played by Ray Liotta, has died in the process. And so it's that feeling of, we thought we were putting somebody in witness protection, and you guys are basically trying to keep a relic alive. You guys want to take this dude's heart. So it's like he comes to this realization, like, it wasn't about putting him in witness protection. You guys wanted to capture him, get his heart to save another guy who has valuable information. So that whole scene, it was intense. And just to see, Andy had to go one way, Ryan had to go another way. Like, they didn't talk to each other for like 4 or 5 hours, not until we went to dinner, and then everybody was cool. But it was intense.
Wow. We have a question kind of along the same lines of, so Kate wants to know, when
Hey, Kate.
in an audition reel, should you send 2 different takes on the role?
Are you talking to me?
I'm talking to both of you. What do you
Well,
both think?
from a casting perspective, if you're most of the time, I'll say that generally in casting, you're going to send a couple of takes. Usually,
Right.
a couple of 2 different types of takes. Sometimes they want more than that.
That's important. Yeah, very different.
Yeah, you got to make sure that they're not the same take.
Right.
Right. They should be different. So, and that's where we come back to, you know, why I would teach that, you know, learn this 3 different ways, right? Because it would make them think outside of that rehearsed one way that the people were doing things. And then I would, and he can attest to this, he would get up there and do it like whether it was at the time we might have been working on a commercial or whatever.
Right.
And I said, great, let's do it again. Now try it different.
Right.
And then like, okay. You know,
I mean, and there'd be times where I get frustrated because there was nights Dennis and I would be up until like 1 or 2 in the morning trying to get it right. Like that's the thing about what I really love about working with Dennis is it's when I would get a call to get on tape, and it would and most of the time it was for Hollywood, sometimes it would be for like the Bay Area, but when it was a role that I really would get into, you know, and I would put a lot of time and effort into it. And then I get with Dennis, and then we start talking through it, and he could give me a paradigm shift in perception and that I had never thought of before. And so I would try it, and we go at it, and then we go back and forth, and we find it, and we look at it, the film, and then we go back again, and like, not in like this part, let's do this. And so it was really like the art of the audition. And then once I felt like I nailed it, I had no joy left, you know, because Dennis would be like, all right, let's do it different now. And we would nail, like, he goes, that's a good take. That's good. That's one we're sending. And
that's the great thing about self-tapes.
Right. And then he'd say, okay, let's get something else. And it's like a changing of energy. And you have to kind of start taking the clay and molding it again and really getting it fine-tuned, and then you nail it out again. It's like, all right, let's do it again. And, you know, you look up, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and I got to get this thing back down to LA by 10 a.m. You know, so, yeah. You know, it's that process that I don't know if people, and you know, I question sometimes when people say they want to be an actor or, you know, a director, a producer, a writer. What you have to understand first is that you're an artist. You know, that's first and foremost. And so sometimes you can weed out the differences in people really quickly because, you know, artists is about finding that rhythm, that energy, whether it's a musician, whether you're acting, whether it's about creating that organic feeling that you felt like you created something. So when you're even in the smallest things as far as an audition, it's really important and critical to try to put your best foot forward.
Yeah, and more specifically for you, Kate, the person that asked that question, Kate Brolin, love Kate, by the way, she's awesome. Is most of the time the answer is going to be yes. Send them 2 takes. Most of the time, there's always going to be exceptions to the rule, but go by that rule. Let that be your rule of thumb. 2 takes.
Yeah, I would definitely. I agree with Dennis because and if they're really good takes, they might only look at one and put you in a batch of people that they're going to look at again.
Right.
And then when they look they look more in depth, they see another take and they're like, oh, okay, we got range with this one, which could get you to another pile or another bracket of people, like of that process. So you never just want to do just one take.
Yeah. Great question.
That was a good question.
I have a question. Dennis, do you prefer coaching or acting, or is it the same?
I'm an actor first.
Okay.
So the reason that I actually started teaching was actually because of a casting director that I had worked with, and well, you know, I give a lot of credit to my first experience working behind the scenes was with Bo Beno Casting, and in San Francisco, you know, and I did a workshop with him one time here in Sacramento when I was teaching, and he, you know, I kind of was helping him out and stuff, and then he asked me specifically, "Hey, would you be interested in learning to come run some castings for me, or to come run camera?" So, you know, he wanted to know if I'd be interested. I said, "Heck yeah," because he was, you know, very motivated to trying to get actors, as many actors as possible, to know how to audition properly. And that's what he was actually here doing, you know, because there was a lot of people coming from Sacramento to San Francisco doing things that he couldn't figure out why they were doing those things. He's like, who's telling you guys this stuff? You know? Well, so then I started working for Bo Beno in San Francisco, and wound up working, running a lot of his casting sessions as the session director. So he wound up trusting me and liking how I was able to work with actors, because I am an actor, right? And he kind of took me under his wing and showed me a bunch of things about the business that I just had no idea about, right? And at one point he asked me, he said, "So, you know, why you need to be teaching people this stuff?" He said, "Because you get it, and they need to get it." Right? And he's like, you're seeing this stuff firsthand, and you know what this process takes, and you know, so you should be. So he kind of really encouraged me to be teaching more of that stuff, and so it was just a lot of. And then Kathy Jensen, who, again, someone else who kind of trusted me and the skill that I had to be able to teach it and impart it to other people. So as far as, you know, what do I prefer? I mean, I prefer all of it, because all of it's rewarding.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, when I see Chris, you know, I mean, to me, that's success, right? I mean, this guy, you know, was in a class with little kids at one point, you know, and you know what I mean? It's like, you know, so I'm just trying to make a difference, you know, and whether that's through the art of acting or through teaching actors, you know, it doesn't matter, you know. So my passion, much like yourself and like Chris, is trying to get people to that point where, you know, we are a tight-knit group, you know, people anywhere around the world be able to say, "Oh yeah, you know, you should check out some of these people in Sacramento," you know, or something like that. I mean, we're not quite there yet, you know, but it would be nice. Yeah, it would be nice to be able to have that kind of, you know, reference, you know, and people have to have that skill set. So that was kind of a long-winded answer to that, and I don't even know if I answered the question, but
no, you did, and it's the best of both worlds, and it's the same way that, you know, when I see filmmakers succeed, I take really great personal pride, especially when I know that, you know, they've been a part of our association and we've done anything to support them. So they succeed, we succeed. It just that it's a joy that. So I feel like it's the best of both worlds, and I think the other way that you stretch that, and I think you've done this too, and I know Chris has, is to get beyond acting and into producing, often into writing. So a lot of times we have really talented people who recognize that they want to have more control over the content that they're choosing to participate in. And instead of waiting for someone to find them right for a role, they know where to create a role for themselves, and then we'll work on getting it done. So can you guys speak to a little bit to that?
Are you asking me to speak to it?
Yeah, like, yeah,
Either, I'm sorry, I should say specifically, but I know both of you have dabbled, so
Yeah, it's harder, when you get into the producing or directing um, aspect of it. You actually learn more of the business side to it,
yeah.
from what I've learned. Um, and that's what's hard because you think like, I'm gonna make my own film and put all my friends in it, and then like, wait a minute, we got to sell this thing. Wait
Yeah.
a minute, we got to make this scene work. Like we gotta make this believable. And
And so
so
for nothing.
yeah, and so I think when I had the opportunity to put on a producer hat or a director hat on projects that I've worked on, I have a profound respect for it. I learned that there's still a lot I don't know and that I need to learn. But it's harder because from the aspect or the perspective of an actor, I'm glad that I had that experience because when talking with other actors on set, I can kind of relate to them more. And the one thing that I used to learn from watching Joe Carnahan on set is that he always wanted to make his actors look their best. He'd always say that I'll make sure we get the best take of you. And that was comforting when you're like, okay, because I'm giving him everything I got, and he's like, I'm gonna give it back to you, but we're gonna find it, we're gonna get it, and we're not gonna move forward until we get this scene out with everybody being happy about it.
nice. Wouldn't it be nice if all directors are like that?
Yeah, but they're not.
No,
Yeah, that would be nice.
Or if they all had that skill set.
Right.
and
That's where you get the term like he's an actor's director.
Actors, director, yeah.
Yeah.
that's actually, we did a workshop with that at one point, because it's not enough to just know how to block and where to set up the camera and how to visually tell your story. If you
Right.
can get your actors to communicate, and that is truly, I've seen actors, directors that are great, with the camera and great with people, and often not the same thing. So, what if you could choose what you could do next, or what has escaped you that you'd really like to dig your teeth into? What would that be? We'll start with you, Dennis.
Well, I think for me, I have something that, we all have our passion projects, and, I have a friend that I work with, that have been working with for a long time, who also started out as a student, my friend Nathan. And Nate Dogg. And, him and I have been working together for a long time as well. And we write stuff all the time with, and we produce stuff together. And so we've worn all those hats. Right. And, there's a project that we wrote several years ago that I actually, was a concept that I had thought about to teach actors, basically. It was a way to try to teach actors the art of sitcom and that kind of stuff. And I originally wanted to do this, and then him and I kind of came up with this idea to write this script around this whole idea of this process. And I was originally wanting to use it as a class learning thing, but it kind of turned into its own thing. And we really want to just produce it. We want to get it up and going, because I think it's something that is very viable here to do now with the technology that we have, to have a sitcom, have something that would give a revolving door for actors and writers and directors to come and try their stuff, while utilizing these characters, and so the biggest challenge has been location. That's probably been the biggest challenge. We have many episodes already written, and they would have to be applied to the current times, which isn't a problem because, You just apply it and you change it accordingly. And Chris actually came and read some of the script. And you know, there's a lot of, I think, ways that we could utilize something like that in this area, but also having the knowledge to be able to teach people what it is like to actually audition for a sitcom, because it's not the same.
Not.
And there, you know, you got a little bit of different set of rules. You know, it's not like your typical audition where you can go in and kind of wing it here and there. It's like, no, you know, and it's great for comedic timing, you know, and so I think that it would allow a really good venue to put application to what people are learning skill wise without having to go outside of Sacramento.
Yeah.
You know, so, and plus they would get the skills that they would need if they wanted to go to LA or New York or whatever to audition for sitcoms and all that kind of stuff. But to have something like that here, I think would be awesome. And so that would be my probably passion project.
And I will tell you that is, it is on a front burner for several people who I think have the chops to really make things happen, to create real-time learning environments in production. So and not only to create something while you're teaching something, but to have industry level mentors like teams to support the project from beginning to end.
Right.
And to actually have something that can see the light of day and provide credits to students who, you know, having a credit and experience is really all they need to really go out and seek out additional work.
Oh yeah.
Instead of paying $250,000 for a film school education that, you know, doesn't guarantee them anything.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that I think are being recognized, especially now in this, you know, COVID environment where we have to learn to do things remotely. Going to meet exactly what the need is. And as you're telling me your plan, and as we talked about it yesterday, all I can think of is that's a workshop, that's a class waiting to happen that has an actual outcome of a product that you can be proud of. So I totally want to see something like that take place, and we'll keep you looped into anything I know, because I see that.
Yeah, it opens up the door for a lot of things. It opens the door for set designers. It opens up the door for guest directors. You know, it opens up the door for recurring characters.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's not these one-offs. Like there's a lot of great things that are happening. Like there's the film festivals that are doing like the 10-minute shorts and all that kind of stuff. And all that stuff is great to cut your teeth on, you know, but where are they going to lead?
Yeah.
You know, where are they going to go?
When you're doing programs over and over again and you're not upping your game, it's not taking you to the level of professionalism that you need.
And I'm not discounting them. I think that we need that stuff. We have to have that, especially for actors that don't have any other way to get speaking roles, you know? So we need better writers, and we need a way for that kind of stuff to happen. And actors, you know, this is all a catch-22. Like you have to have good speaking roles on your reel, right? But how do you get them? You know? So I think that there's ways to provide that stuff.
Yeah.
You know? And these short films are great ways to do that, cut your teeth on it and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, I think that there should be a bigger goal.
So what about you, Chris? If you could write your script for what you want to do next, what would that look like?
I would really love to bring a Hollywood caliber show to Sacramento, but have it based out of Sacramento.
That'd be awesome.
I'd really like to and have that talent here, because that's where I can only go off my experiences, and a lot of my growth happened. Like Dennis prepared me for a lot, but I was fortunate to work with actors who cared enough about me and my career to teach me a lot of things that you don't learn in classrooms. So I think bringing something that's Hollywood greenlit to Sacramento, and we talked about this last night. Like, we came close to doing it, but it didn't pan out. But if I could be a part of creating something that is Hollywood driven, to be able to create an opportunity, because, and don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm not saying that we'd cast main characters out of Sacramento, because that would probably be highly unlikely. But it would, but
At least to start.
Right. But the supporting roles and smaller roles, to be on a set, to see how PAs work, to see how gaffers work, to see how the lighting is, to see how makeup artists work that are in the union, and how they operate, and how wardrobe is done, and, you know, those types of things that people in Sacramento can actually see, but also bring revenue to the city of Sacramento. That's what I would like to see happen, because, you know, we never get our just due. You know, we're the capital of California, and you have, you know, LA is rocking down there. But you don't see too many shows you don't see any shows out of Sacramento. Like, they come and visit, maybe for historical things, but I would like to create a show that's based in Sacramento, where that's about Sacramento.
I think that'd be awesome.
I think most of what you guys are talking about is so freaking doable. I just, you know, it's a matter of starting with the content, obviously,
Right.
and then figuring out, you know, what's the funding, what are your options looking like for that.
Right.
You know, that we want to always encourage, is, you know, that we are doing things the right way. And that's one of the things that I also want you guys to touch on as well, because I think that we've all, and I say, you know, the royal we, all of us, I know I have, started in an independent film environment where, you know, dude, you just did what you had to do to get it done. Whether you're the producer, you know, and you were hauling slop, or whatever the case may be, we didn't think about rules. We just thought about how to get from point A to point Z in the script and do it well. And certainly we know, because as we do it, you know, with more and more professional environments in mind, there are certain ways to do it. There's certain ways to do it. There's certain ways to not do it. And I think that what's really important for our community to know is, as actors, first of all, you know, what can they do? I think we had a question. This kind of ties in. Leah Finnegan has a question that kind of ties in with what I'm saying. You know, what can you teach? What's the number one thing you say to actors over and over that you wish that would stick? And your choice is whether it's in regard to preparation technique, presenting yourself, professionalism. But I think the point is, how do we go in making Sacramento look like a kick-ass industry and not a podunk, you know, cowtown?
I don't know that I want to lose that little bit of cowtown. I mean, that's kind of what makes us unique.
That's true.
But I think, you know, things that I've seen from the casting side, from working behind the camera and doing a bunch of casting and seeing actors doing a lot of the same mistakes, which is, in my opinion, and this is just an opinion, because I know someone's out there going, no, I disagree. There's something else that's more important. You know, just relax. In my opinion, I see a lot of people that come in and don't understand that this isn't about them. You're coming in and showing us your interpretation of this, whatever that you've been given, whether it's a character in a movie role, a commercial, whatever. You have a take, some sort of context that you're giving yourself, right? But invariably, people come in and they think that this is about their acting, right? And it's not. Because if you are worried about your acting, you're not in character. And I see so many people that are like giving the impression like they do their thing and then they've got this kind of like, so was that good? Was that good? Like, I don't know. Was it good? You tell me. You're the one doing it. Do you believe it? Like, I don't know. So I would say that, let go of that stuff. If, like to Leah's question, what do I have to say over and over and over again that doesn't seem to stick is you got to go in there and stop worrying about the outcome. It doesn't matter. The outcome is irrelevant because every audition is an audition for something else. Right. And if you go in there and you do your thing and you embrace it, right or wrong, whether it's what they're thinking or not is irrelevant. What they're going to respect is that you made solid choices, right? And, they might ask you to do it again, give you some direction. They're going to see how well you take direction. This stuff can't bother you. It can't bother you. You got to let it go because it's like, I tell people, it's like, keep doing your auditions. You got to just keep plugging in. Don't quit worrying about the result. You can't go in there thinking, oh my gosh, I got to get this. Mm-hmm. You're probably not going to get it. The chances are you're not going to get it. Those are the odds. Now, if we're going to talk numbers, those are the odds. You're probably not going to get it. So go in there and just commit. That's your moment. Go in there and commit. Don't be a jackass. Be nice, be kind to people. But when it's your time, it's your time. Like, you're on, go and commit to it. And don't second guess it while you're in the middle of it. And I would say that would probably make the majority of actors in this area stronger, is that they just were stopped worrying about getting the role. Forget it.
Do you see mistakes that are made repeatedly by people in general? I mean, and that you're hearing about? What are those mistakes? I want you to share those.
People don't understand how to be in a scene with somebody else. They just like they've got scripts in their hands, they've got their sides, right? And they're not paying attention to the person in the scene. They're worried about their lines, and so when they're not talking, what are they doing? They're reading. Well, that's not going to help anybody. How are you going to react? Right? Yeah. Watch. Some of your favorite actors have, like, you can go online and look at their auditions and watch how they read with other people. They are paying attention to that person. And when it's time for them to speak, they've learned the skill of being able to grab their lines, and being able to deliver without it looking like, hold on a second. That's a skill, and you got to practice that kind of stuff. So, practice that. And that's where maybe classes and stuff like that come in handy, but being in a scene with somebody, you have to know how to interact with that person, and not look at your script. And so I'm not sure what Chris might have to say about that. So
one of my favorite directors, Aaron Leong, is agreeing with me. Says exactly, don't look for approval. A lot of beginning actors after cut are looking to the director, wondering if what they did was okay. Just believe that it is.
Yeah. I love Aaron. Aaron's great.
Aaron's my dude. Aaron Long he's gonna be one of those directors that you're gonna read about in a year or so.
He was the DP on the last movie that I did the second to the last movie I did last year. He was the DP, and great guy.
Aaron is very talented.
Yeah.
What I would say, I think Dennis is giving, valuable information for, like, locally.
Mm-hmm.
I'll start it with saying, like, something that George Clooney once said. Why would you get nervous about a job you don't even have?
Right.
So
exactly.
It's like people get anxious about, this audition. And it's like, and until you've gone down to, like, LA, and that's what I'm saying. And Dennis is telling you some very good information. when you go down to LA, or if you ever get an opportunity to go to LA, and sometimes in San Francisco, it's a different evolution. Like the auditioning in the Sacramento and Bay Area is different than LA, and it's different in New York. And I've had the opportunity of being in all those places and auditioning for various roles. But
yeah, well, in New York, they're like, you're not right. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, yeah.
In LA, it's like, oh, thanks for coming. It was so great.
Yeah, you know, it's, you know, New York is very harsh. New York is just like, get the fuck out of here. Excuse my French.
They're like,
But,
yeah, we're not gonna waste your time. You're not right.
Yeah, they're like, stop. No, you're not good. Next. But you know, when you're talking about, you know, auditions and being prepared for them, and I'm telling you this just from experience. Like when you get down to LA, there's games that people play even in the auditioning.
Yes, there are.
They call it and I'm sorry for the term, so please at home cover your ears. They call it star.
It's okay.
They call it star fucking. And that's where you have a bigger name actor that comes in. Like my evolution in auditioning, you know, first you're auditioning in the Bay Area and you get to know the guys who are popular in the Bay Area, and then you go down to LA and you're just a bunch of no-name actors, everybody's going, and then you reach another level where you see people that you know are on shows and you're like, oh, I recognize them from this show. And then you actually, you know, I think I knew I had made it to another level when I walked into an audition and Terry Crews was walking out or Ving Rhames was walking out, and I was just like, man, this sucks. I'm not even gonna get this role.
I gotta follow this.
Yeah. But sometimes actors will purposely do that to you, and you know, while you're in the lobby or you're running your lines and stuff like that, and they'll come out and they'll be like, oh no, you go ahead, man. You know. And they let you go ahead of them, and it's really, and it throws you off, and they're joking around with people, and they're kikiing and laughing and talking about their kids, and everything's so relaxed, and you know, you're sitting here worried about your audition, and it's a psych, it's a head psych, and you know, usually you flub it or what have you, and you come out and they give you that gotcha, like I fucked you. Because you thought you had more time, and now you got to go in there. So there's times where and that's a part of your growth as far as getting harder skin, thicker skin. But to be specific to the young woman who had the question, I would say, you know, go into it with confidence. Be confident about whatever the decisions that you made. Don't change them. The one thing that I saw up here, that I see up here, or that I don't see up here that I see in LA, no one runs their lines.
I know, right?
No one runs their lines in Sacramento or San Francisco. Yeah. LA, New York, you go to audition and you just see people pacing in hallways, in corners, running their lines. And you see some people help each other out and they're like, hey, do you want me to run your lines with you? Because it's never a personal thing. Everybody's a struggling actor. Everybody's looking for work, and everybody hopes you get that gig. Everybody's saying break a leg, all that kind of stuff, because it's objective to the people who are evaluating you.
Right.
It's not, you're not in competition. You are in competition with each other, but everybody's pulling for each other, because I don't have any, like if me and Dennis are going for a role, I have no power of messing Dennis up or hurting him if I'm in competition with him. Ooh, wait a minute. My phone was talking, or my
unless I put my glasses on, then they're going to think we're the same person. So.
Right. But the thing is that it's the people behind the table that are making the decision. So everybody has a fair shot going into it. So, you know, knowing that moving forward, you know, when people run their lines, I never see that second, and it blows my mind. Like I've seen people look at me weird when I'm actually running my lines if I do something in the Bay Area. I haven't had an audition in Sacramento for a while, since like last summer. But when I see people, and it throws me, because I remember being here initially and starting, and then I didn't know anything. I didn't know any better. And you know, even though Dennis is like, hey, you know, run your lines, and it's like when you're the only one, you feel weird.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the very first time I ran my lines, and I remember stopping because everybody was looking at me like, "What the fuck are you doing,
What's
dude?"
that guy doing?
Like, yeah, like, what are you doing? And I literally stopped because I was more intimidated by the crowd of people who were waiting to audition than just doing what I was taught and running my lines.
Took you out
And
of your.
so, and I think when I went to LA, when I started getting more auditions in LA, and I would see it was the norm, I was like, oh, D was right. And so you're just doing it and nobody's paying attention to you. And you do that. But it gets you're in the zone. And people, that's where I would say, when you're rehearsing, never stop rehearsing and don't listen to somebody else. If you do get to somebody who's running their lines, don't make a change or change your mind about a decision you made about a character because you heard somebody else do
Right.
it. You might hear somebody else doing like, ooh, I like how that sounded. I'm gonna try to mimic that.
Find
Don't
your
do that.
interpretation.
Right. Stick with what you know or what you decided, and and understand that star fucking is real. It's very real. And I remember who's the dude?
I
It
know who you're
was
talking about.
Varsity Blues, Vanderbeek, his name?
Vanderbeek.
What's his first
James
name?
Vanderbeek? James Vanderbeek? No.
Is it James Vanderbeek? But you guys know the guy from Varsity
Yeah.
Blues, right?
Yeah.
Well, it was a rom-com movie. We're in Beverly Hills, and I think it was Katherine Heigl was the first, was the lead. It was a rom-com with Katie. And I remember he came in, and it was there were some named actors in there. So I was just geeked because I'm like, all right, well, I'm competing with some guys I see on TV. And I remember Vanderbeek came in, and he was cool to me, but he was like pissed that he had to audition. And that's another evolution of an actor. Like, after you do so much work, it's not a question on whether you can act or not. It's really about whether you're right for that part.
Yep.
So a lot of times when I go down for an audition, there's a meeting prior to that. It's like, hey, Chris, we just want to get your take on the character. How do you feel about this? What's your input? How would you develop this character? Or what do you think the direction this character should go? And then they get up and say, okay, let's go and get you on tape. So it's really like, after you've done enough work, it's not really a question on whether you can act or not, because you've done Hollywood pictures, or you've been on TV shows, or you've done things that they can see, and you've got a reel, so they know. It's not, it's never a question of, like, can he act? It's like, well, is this person right for this role? So understand, as you elevate and move through your journey of being an actor, there's going to be different types of obstacles and different challenges for you as you evolve.
But don't let the big picture overwhelm you.
Never let the big picture overwhelm you.
You just keep being creative.
Right.
Keep learning, keep training, do all that stuff, because, everyone's story is different.
Right.
And, you're not here for somebody else's story. You're here for your story. So you do what is going to fulfill you, and don't worry about, we're giving you things that are, things that happen all the time in the industry that you have to look for and all that kind of stuff. There's going to be things you need to look out for, that kind of stuff, but don't let it overwhelm you.
Oh, and I'll say one other thing to the young lady as far as knowing things. Just don't get caught up in getting intimidated because you're from Sacramento.
Yeah, right.
Actors from Sacramento or from San Francisco hate people from Sacramento. LA hates people from San Francisco and Sacramento. New York hates everything coming from the West Coast.
Yeah.
So and I've dealt with it on each level. I'll never forget when I did a movie called Pride and Glory with Ed Norton, Colin Farrell, John Foyt, Noah Emmerich, and Murph, the sound guy.
Murph.
He's gonna put Murph, but he was a sound guy for Law and Order. I'm in the trailer. I'm in my trailer. Like, I've already auditioned and I've gotten the role, and he comes in my trailer and he's like, yo, I'm really happy to see, us getting this work. And he's assuming that I'm from New York. He thinks I'm, a New York actor. So we keep talking. Cause I'm already in my New York, accent. Like I'm in character. I'm getting ready to go do a rehearsal. So he's like, yeah, this is really good stuff for us. We don't get these big movies like this. You remind me of Malik Yoba. You got that good look, kid. You might go far. And I'm like, oh, thanks, man. He's like, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm not from New York. I'm from LA. And he's just like, what? Get the fuck out of here. And I'm like, whoa, because he was like visibly upset. And I was like, yo, man, but yo, I look like Malik. I'm here. We doing this. We in New York. We about to go to. He's like, fuck that. I'm not miking this kid. Kicks my door open like with his foot, like karate chop. Pow! I was like, whoa. He storms out. I'm not miking this kid. This kid's from LA. Fuck LA. Fuck Hollywood. It's all about New York. It's us out here. We stick together. Nothing personal, kid, but fuck you. And I'm like,
yeah, nothing personal.
and I'm sitting there, and I remember Gavin O'Connor was the director. He's the one that did Miracle, the movie, the Disney movie about the USA hockey team. So Gavin just happens to be walking by. He said, hey, Chris, you met Murph? And I was like, and I was sitting there still in my doorway, like shocked with the door swinging open. And I was looking at him, and I was like, yeah. He's like, yeah, man. If Murph doesn't like you, it's going to be a problem. And I'm like,
no.
wow. So he eventually comes back. He mics everybody else, and he mics me last. And so, then when it was time, we did the rehearsal, we did the blocking, and I went to go to lunch. And by that time, Murph had told everybody, all the extras, everybody on set that, yo, they got this kid from California. And I wasn't a big name like Ed Norton. And plus, Ed has his own places in New York. So I come, and it was like new kid out of school. Like nobody sat with me. And I'll never forget it because when Gavin finally got to where he was to the where they were doing lunch for us, he was like, I was sitting by myself at the table. Like I was just literally sitting at a table by myself, and him and one of the producers and executive producer, Rick Torelli, he was like, hey, Chris, come eat with us. And I was just like, I was in shock. I remember grabbing my food and going to their table. And I was just like, yo, these New York actors are serious. He's like, yeah, it's a tight-knit family, man. They don't get too much work out here. Even though this is the Big Apple, the acting community is very small. And so, and that was my initiation. Like the first day they gave me shit. They, called me names, like nicknames, like, hey, Cali boy, hey, LA, what's up? Where's your tan at? Where your sunglasses? You didn't bring any sand. But then after that first day of them just giving me a hard time, because I was out there for like a month total. I was like 2 weeks and then back to Cali and then back out there for 2 weeks to film. It was all love. And by the end, it was great. But there's that, that paying dues where you don't think that you're going to get, you think you're just being professional and you're out there working. And people are grinding just like you. And it's competition. And they felt like I had taken a role that could have went to a brother that was out there in New York.
Yep.
It's not that like they didn't have black people in New York that was bald-headed and had a New York accent, but I nailed the audition and I got it. So it's always just stick to your guns, don't take anything personal. Don't think, don't get worried about a job you never had.
Yep.
Don't stress out about it. Just make your decisions about your character, be prepared, have your character down 3 different ways and go in there and kill them.
So we've talked about what to do, what not to do. What I want to make sure we touch on, in case people are watching or come across this that don't know who you are and what you've done. Chris, can you go into a little detail on kind of what got you? We know you started with Dennis's class with,
Right.
teenagers or the not even teenagers. My God.
Well, some of them were teenagers, yeah.
Children.
Okay, we'll say that.
Small children. Small, smelly children.
They weren't smelly.
From there, what did you do, and how did that lead to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing until we kind of come up to speed with where you are and what you're doing now? And I know we have your demo reel that we can also show.
Well, I
And
have
it's
his
dated.
current one.
Well, Dennis probably has my current one, but the
Yeah.
one you guys have is dated. So
I can
don't judge
share
me
it if you
for
want.
But but look at it. That could go by what Hollywood standard is as far as what they look at for a reel. But as far as my initial motivation, I was in college. I graduated from UC Davis.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm local.
I have a UC connection. We'll have to have a marathon phone call.
I didn't get it. I didn't get a degree in the arts. It was in business. So that's a totally different story. But I was sitting on campus one day and in my dorm room watching BET, and where I'm from, we didn't have black entertainment television. So I was like, wow, they got black entertainment television here. I was just like, yo, I watch that all day, every day. And they had, I think it was Brandy's show, Moesha was playing on it. And I was watching one of the actors on there who was doing a horrible job. And, prior to that, I'd volunteered for things in school and did plays and stuff like that just for fun. But at that point, I was like, yo, I'm going to look into this because this person is horrible. And if that person can get paid doing that, I can do it. And that started me on my quest. And even before I met up with Dennis and Kathy Jensen, I was doing like print model work, stuff like that, locally. I went and when I finally found, I was like, yo, I gotta take some acting classes. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I looked up Kathy Jensen. It was called Just for Kids. And I was like, well, do you guys got anything for adults? And she was like, well, not exactly, but we can figure something out. Because I kept calling. Just like, hey, just checking in. I know you got this kids classes. I know it's just for kids, but I've called all around Sacramento. There's no other classes given for adults. And she was just like, come on down, let's talk. And so Kathy was very, very kind. And that's when she first introduced me to Dennis. And then when I started working with Dennis, one of the things he always teaches his students is that, you should go out as many auditions as you can, just to get the practice, to get the jitters out. And I remember it was a place called Sacramento, and they were doing these short films auditions. And one was for the first African-American governor of California. Now, mind you, I was probably 22. Hair. And I'm like, Dennis, the only audition I feel like I qualify for this particular film festival, this thing is this, they want, they're looking for 60 or 70-year-old brother. And he's like, well, just go and do it to get the practice. So actually, I went into it. When you talk about don't worry about it, I had made my decisions. I had got the lines down. But in my mind, I'm like, I'm not even what they're looking for. I'm not a 60-year-old, African-American man. So I'm like, I'm just going in there strictly for practice. And to believe it or not, there was a lot of people auditioning for this role. And so I go in and I'm just kind of like, I go up there, rock my lines, and Charlie Holiday was doing the casting for that. And so he saw me and he's just like, hey, I like what I saw. He goes, can I talk to you outside? He's like, well, there's another guy we wanted to match up because we were going in as two by two. So you're reading opposite another person that was also auditioning for the role, a different role. And so he wanted to match me up with who they thought was the best person for the other role. So we matched up and we had a good energy. It clicked. And the only thing he asked me is like, hey, do you mind graying up your hair and graying up your facial hair? Because we want to offer you this role. And that was the first movie short film that I was in, The 11th Hour, and it had won some film festival award. I don't remember the actual film festival, but I know it won an award. But at the same time, I was moonlighting as a bouncer at a nightclub, and I had my day job, I worked for the government. And I remember one night, now by this time I had gotten in some Thunder Valley Casino commercials, some SAC-B commercials, some, Share West Wireless commercials. So
How did you get those? Were you working with an agent already?
okay, I'm working with Dennis, don't have an agent yet. So I do the place called Sacramento. That happened and it was fun and everything. And then, Dennis is like, you got to get an agent. So I literally went to Cast Images, and my first meeting with Cast Images, they told me they had my look. They're like, hey, we have your look, keep a stiff upper chin. Good luck to you. Don't give up the fight, fight the good fight. And I was just like, damn. And at that time, Cast Images was the only agency in Sacramento. Mm-hmm. So, I kind of come back to Dennis like, yo, man, they don't even want to represent me. So he's like, look, get your monologue down, have a comedic one, have a dramatic one, and go to the Bay Area. And Dennis had referred me to Boom Modeling Talent. And I will never forget Boom Modeling Talent, because exactly what Dennis told me they would do, they did. So, I show up, I have a headshot and whatever little resume I had, and they were like, okay, well, we want to see your monologue. So I do a monologue, I do a comedic one, she laughs. I do a dramatic one, she's like, that's good. They offer me a 1-year contract with Boom Modeling. Back then, I'm dating myself, but their big name was Roger Craig from the San Francisco 49ers. That was their big dude that they had signed with them. So I was like, yeah, I'm with the same agency as Roger Craig with 49ers. Not that I had anything to do with my career, but I was just hyped, with that. So I come back to SAC and I'm excited. I call Dennis. I'm like, yo, Boom signed me. He's like, congratulations. And so right then, I could have took the no from Cast Images and just stopped and been like, this isn't for me. So I get Boom Modeling Talent. So now I put it on the top of my resume, like my representation. I go back to Cast Images, and this time I'm meeting with the owner, Chandra Bourne. And shout out to Chandra, she's good people. But I went and saw Chandra, and she saw that I had representation in San Francisco. And so she was just like, okay, and you got something? She goes, well, we'll sign you for a 1-year contract. And I was like, well, hold on. I was just here 2 weeks ago, and it wasn't her, but somebody else had said they had my look. And so I was like, y'all still got the same, chocolate faces on your website that y'all had 2 weeks ago. They still there. So what's up, Chandra? So so she kind of laughed at me, and she was like, you know what, I'll apologize for that person. I mean, I don't know. I can't tell you why they said that, but we definitely want you. And they signed me. And that's when I got representation in Sacramento and in San Francisco. But I could have seen how that could have went differently. Yeah. Like if I would have just said, screw it, this isn't for me. I can't even get representation in Sacramento. How the hell am I going to get representation in San Francisco? So,
but you listen to your boy,
right? And so now that I'm going on auditions, that's when I got the Share West Wireless, and it was always. It's funny now that I think about it, because it was Dennis. He was just like, always come to an audition wearing something that they'll remember you by. He's like, that's not wearing like a chicken head on your thing, but come, but come like. And I remember like the Share West Wireless, we were looking for business professionals, and because I was working at the Capitol, I had this nice suit, this nice combo that I liked, with the tie and the handkerchief, and I had it. I was dressed to the nines, and I remember when I walked in for the audition, I remember the person auditioning. This is for Share West Wireless. Like they looked, and it was like, yo, I like that suit. And just in my mind, I'm like, I got this dude. This dude's already giving me compliments on my suit. So I had that confidence immediately there. And it was just for my look. It wasn't even like I said anything, because at those times, Share West Wireless was like a voiceover commercial where they just showed pictures of people doing stuff. So we were at Elfer Nile, we were at Rayleigh's Field for the baseball stuff, and they kept using me. They're like, hey, we like his look, so we need you to go put on a t-shirt and shorts and put on some sunglasses, and we're going to put you in this scene. So it was funny because that first Sure West Wireless was like everywhere. And it was like, it was aired during the Kings games and everything. And that's why I was like, yo, that's Chris, yo, that's Chris. So it was cool to get that recognition. And then it evolved into meeting Sally Forcier. And so Sally Forcier was a casting director in Sacramento. Shout out to Sally. And she was casting for Thunder Valley Casinos. And so at this time, I can't remember his name, but there was one brother. That's the only thing. And I'm talking, this is my hometown, so I'm, it's all love. I'm gonna talk shit about you a little bit. At that time in Sacramento, it was like one black dude, one black female for all commercials. And it was just like, that's what it was. And I remember the guys, I can't remember his last name. I do, actually. Ruben Grundy.
Yeah.
Ruben Grundy was the black dude for Sacramento. Like when I first got on the scene.
Good looking dude.
I mean, he's a really good looking dude. He was in, I think his claim to fame at that time was that he got to be an extra on Ed TV. And then I remember sweet, because it was like, there was only one big gym that everybody worked out at, and it was downtown 24-hour fitness. So I'd always see him there. And like, I was kind of like, yo, Ruben. And I would come to him. And luckily from my experience with him, he was very welcoming. He was like, hey, man, just keep at it. And he really took good care of himself. Like, he was considerably older, but he looked younger. Like, when I was in my 20s, he was like in his 40s, but he looked my age. So, and I was like, man, every time I go for an audition, Ruben would be there. And I'd be like, damn, Ruben's the guy right now. And I remember when he finally was like, I'm jumping stories, but I remember it was a Coors Light ad, a billboard ad. And it was booked through Chandra at Cast Images. And it was me, Ruben, and a couple other people for this billboard that was going to be in Tahoe. And I remember, like, I felt like I arrived. And I was like, I'm working with Ruben. I'm like, what's up, Rube? And he's like, hey, Chris, you on this shoot? I was like, yeah, man, I'm here with you now, baby. You got light skin chocolate, you got dark skin chocolate. We representing. So, and that was cool. And that was really cool. And I'm going to bring up Ruben later, but it's like, when he's like, yo, I'm going to LA. I got this gig on General Hospital. And he's like, I'm leaving. I kind of like, okay, now I'm really going to book him. And so I started getting all the local stuff. And I think Ruben and I did a Gallo Wines commercial together in Napa. And that was like the last time. He was like, yeah, this is my last gig up here. I'm going down to LA. So the work was coming. And then it was getting into San Francisco. And I'm not going to lie, San Francisco pissed me off more than LA pissed me off, or New York. Because San Francisco, it was like they shitted on Sacramento guys. They just, you'd go to Bo and you'd be, you'd register with Bo Beno Casting and you go up there to San Francisco and you had these dudes. And I didn't even know I had to come back and ask Dennis. I didn't know what a 5 and under was. So you get these movies that would come up to the Bay, these major productions, and they'd have like the 5 and unders. And so I'd get casted as an extra, but I wouldn't get the 5 and unders. And these guys would come in and they'd be down their nose at you. Like, I don't recognize you. Where you from? And I'm like, Sac. They're like, oh.
Cowtown.
Yeah. And they would kind of dismiss you. And it was, and the thing is, I remembered all of those, and they all came back full circle. So it was like,
this business is always full circle.
So I remember doing The Incredible Hulk and being, in San Francisco in gear, hoping my face would cross the screen, running around, with my SWAT suit on. And I remember being an extra in The Matrix when the Zion celebration. We must have jumped in mud for like 14 hours.
Oh man,
and
that was grueling.
It was cold in the Bay, so you just jump in. They're like, "All right, cue the dancers," and we didn't have no music. We just jumping in the mud and throwing things around. And I'm watching The Matrix like, yo, maybe they see me. Like, nah, you can't see me. And I'm trying to tell my mom, like, Mom, I'm in the Hulk scene. When he comes out the scene in San Francisco, that whole group of soldiers right there, I'm in that group. And she's like, sweetie, I don't know which one you are. So it wasn't until I did like a national commercial, and my first one was Outback Steakhouse. This is through San Francisco. So when I got my principal, that's when you get that one SAG point, and it was like, and you have this misperception that you are just gonna do nothing but SAG commercials from there on out. So it's like, I booked this Outback Steakhouse, and it was the blossoming onion, and we got to film it at this time. It was Candlestick Park when it was still up, and it was with some professional football players. And I played this football player that gets knocked out, and they bring this blossoming onion, and I come to, and I'm just like, and I take a dip, and we start playing again. That type of thing. It was fun, and so at this point, I'm not even really telling my parents because I'm a graduate from UC Davis. I'm supposed to be working at the state capitol. I'm not supposed to be doing this bouncing and acting thing. So my mom calls me, and she's like, baby, somebody from the church said they saw you on TV. I was like, Mom, what are you talking about? I'm like, Mom, they always think we look alike, so don't even trip. So I kind of brushed it off. And so I got kind of slid out from that one. And then then I got a Coors Light. And fortunately, this one aired NBA Finals,
Oh.
the commercial like at halftime. And I'm the dude checking the temperature. Like it was the whole the course train, the night train, all aboard, people around the world. And so I'm the dude in the beginning where it's all cold, and you see me check the thermometer to make sure it's 32 degrees, and then I send off the train. But when you first see the commercial, you see the thermometer, and then you see my face like this, like looking at it, like, yeah, that's cold enough. Y'all can go now. So there was my dad called, mom called, like, yeah, son, you need to come home real quick. We need to talk to you about some things. So, and I told them then at that point, like, yeah, I'm doing acting. And, they ended up being my biggest fans. But it was something until I started making that money from the national commercial where it's like everybody around me started taking it more seriously. Like I always was just like, it was fun. I loved doing it. But when you start making that residual income, it's like, okay, you can really make a living at this. And did some more commercials, and then I'm moonlighting. I did the place called Sacramento, and I'm working as a bouncer at this club called Avalon in Sacramento. And I'm sitting in line, I'm the head bouncer, and I see Joe Carnahan in line. And I'm looking around because nobody's reacting to him. So I'm like, that looks like Joe Carnahan. Because I just went to the Crest Theater because he did a screening for one of his earlier movies, Narc. And so I knew, that was with Jason Patrick, Busta Rhymes, Ray Liotta. And so I was like, yo, that is Joe Carnahan, but nobody's tripping off him. So I actually go to the owners and I'm like, hey, there's a Hollywood director in line. Is it okay if I get him out of line and get him in here and show him some SAC love? Because I know he went to SAC State. And so I go up to him and I'm like, Mr. Carnahan, big fan, love Narc, love that you gave Busta Rhymes that shot. You want to come in? He's like, cool. He comes in with his friends. We give him a table. We comp him some drinks. And so I'm just making sure he's having a good night. And then like midway through the evening, he's like, man, that's too bad that, if you were an actor, man, you'd be perfect for this dude, this character I wrote about in this movie called Smoking Aces. And I was like, and again, Dennis is teaching. He's like, always be prepared, always have your headshot and resume with you at all times. So I was like, hey man, don't play. I'm really an actor. I have my headshot resume in my car. And he's like, go get it. So I was like, bet.
Talking about being challenged.
Yeah. So I was like, I run out to my car. I get my headshot and resume. I give it to him. And he's like, hey, man. He goes, you're serious? Like, he was shocked. I was like, yeah, man, I'm really an actor. And so he said, well, at that point in time, he had been hired to write the sequel to LA Confidential. And so he was like, I'm working on a project right now. He said, but if I've already written Smoking Aces, if it gets green lit, I'll give you a call. So not knowing, because this is my first real time talking with somebody from Hollywood, and I didn't know the time continuum of how long that would take. So as time passed, anytime Joe came in town, he either came by the club and I would say, yo, what's up, Joe? And he's like, no, we're not working on that yet. But time had passed, but we had developed a relationship, because anytime he came to Sac, 'cause he had a house still here, he would come through and he'd have fun, and then he'd go back to his house, or he'd fly back to LA. And then one night he shows up and he says, hey, Chris, do you ever get a night off? And I was like, nah, but I'll take a night off. I was like, this next Friday, I'll take a night off. So we took a night off, went out to dinner, and he's like, hey, they're shelving the LA Confidential sequel, and I got greenlit for Smoking Aces. And he's like, I want you to come down and audition. And I was like, no shit. I was like really floored. And I'm like, you're not playing. He's like, no, seriously, the casting director is going to call you. He said, but let me, and this is when I had that first conversation with Joe. And he's like, just so you understand, he's like, I know we've developed a friendship now because it's been like a year. He's like, but this isn't show friends, it's show business. He's like, so what I'll be able to do is get you an audition. Now, what you do with that audition is up to you. He's like, but most people would die to have an audition for an LA movie, for a Hollywood movie. So I was like, okay, bet. So I knew, he's like, but I want you to represent SAC well. I'll get you the sides. As soon as you get the call, I'll get you the sides right away. This and other. And so I was like, okay, cool. So some time went by, probably a month. I get a phone call from my agent saying, hey, they want to see you in Beverly Hills to audition for a role, Bernard Alfonso, for Smoking Aces. And I'm like, cool. So like 48 hours after that, Joe hits me with the email. Here are the sides, man. Know it inside out. I hit up Dennis. We're working on it. I'm working, I'm just practicing my role, getting ready. I fly down to LA and rent a car, go to Beverly Hills. And that's another thing. Shit's expensive when you audition in LA.
You think?
They don't pay for you to audition. They only
what?
Maybe after the third call back, they might finance you. But that first one, you got to get there any way you can, whether you driving, flying.
You mean they don't send a limo out to get you?
Nah, ain't nothing like that. So not at that point in my career. So I show up, and you want to talk about intimidation? I walk into the lobby, Michael Ealy, Janet Jackson, Aisha Tyler, and Heavy D. They're all in the lobby. And I'm like, I hope they're not here for this. Yeah, I'm like, I hope they're not here for this movie, dude. And so I'm sitting there and I'm nervous, and I'm like, because I had pictures of Heavy D and Janet Jackson on my wall in high school. So I was like, yo, I got, these two. That's Heavy D. This is Miss Nasty. This is Miss Jackson. And so we get upstairs, and Joe sees me, and he can tell I'm fucked off. I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, I'm from Sacramento. That's a Grammy Award winning actor. That's a rapper. This dude I saw in Barbershop. I'm like pointing, and Aisha Tyler's on E! News, and I'm like, I'm not on TV yet. I did a Sherwood's Wireless commercial. That's it. That's my extent. And so Joe sees me, and he says, Holley, come here. He brings me into his office. He's like, you nervous? And he's just smiling from ear to ear. He's like, you nervous? He's like, yeah, you look it. He's like, look. And Joe, if you know Joe, Joe's just one of those. If he's gonna bust your balls, but he's also gonna give you love. So he's like, listen. He goes, this is where you wanted to be. He said, now either you can fuck this up, or you can go in the bathroom, gather yourself, make sure you get right back in that mind state that you need to be in, and come out and slay this shit. He said, it's up to you. So the only reference I had at that time was like sports. So when I played football in college or when I ran track, so I literally went in the bathroom and like hyped myself up. I'm splashing water on my face. I'm beating myself on the chest. I'm like, yeah, let's, Sacktown's representing today in Beverly Hills. Like I'm in the zone, right? So then I start running my lines and I'm looking in the mirror and I'm looking at the decisions I'm making, my posturing, all this kind of stuff. And then I come out, I'm calm. And then Kathy Sandrich, Gelfand and Sandrich was the casting director. And she called me in and I do the audition. She's smiling because I'm animated. Like I'm really in this.
Wait a minute. Chris Holley animated?
Right. So
that's insane.
So I do it and she's smiling and she goes, that was great. I was like, thank you. I walk out. Joe kind of sees me like I was nervous. I was still nervous. I was just going to beeline to the elevator, go down, get my car, and go back to the airport and fly back. So Joe stops me. He's like, how'd you do? And I was like, well, I feel like I did good, man. I left it all out there. I did it and I thanked him, gave him a hug. I said, hey, man, thank you for the opportunity. Even if I don't get it, at least that was a part of my journey. I actually auditioned for a Hollywood movie. And so when I came back to SAG, I honestly didn't think, because I saw the competition. And so I didn't really think anything of it. I was like, yo, how many people in SAC can say they auditioned for a Hollywood movie? I was ready to go off that. Like, yo, that was something. I saw Janet Jackson. I didn't ask for her autograph. I really wanted to take a picture with her. Didn't ask. I stayed professional. Dennis would be proud. I'm doing my thing. So a few weeks, and you don't understand how many people audition for Hollywood movies. Like you're looking at probably a minimum of 200 people per role. So you have no concept of time. And if you know the business, they don't call you if you don't get it. They only call you if you get the call back.
That's right.
So a month goes by. Joe's not calling me because he's in LA working on this project. He's doing the casting, looking at films. And all of a sudden I get a call. Kathy calls me. She's like, yo, you got a call back. And I'm like, and this time you got to report to Santa Barbara. And they're bringing me down there. So I'm like, yo, I got a call back. Like I went and celebrated that night just because I got a call back. Because I was like, that means I beat out Heavy D. That's the only dude that I knew that was going for the same role. I was like, I beat the overweight lover. I beat Heavy D. I beat Heavy D. So I was geeked on that. I was just like, if I don't get the role, I'm telling everybody I beat out Heavy D.
Whether I get
care.
it or not.
And because that's where I was in my evolution. I was just like, yo, I got a Hollywood callback, bro. Mm-hmm. Like that was major. I remember calling Dennis, like, I got a callback. He's like, that's good. I was like, I'm drunk right now, but I got a callback because I was already celebrating. I go down there. And I remember my boy Ernesto came down with me. He actually was the owner of Ernesto's, of Avalon. So he's down. He's like, yo, man, you got to call back because I'm at the club. I'm like, yo, y'all, my days is numbered. Chris is about to go Hollywood, y'all. So he's like, I'm going down with you. So we go down there. He flies down with me. We down and rent a car. And we end up in Santa Barbara. And I go in there and I walk upstairs. And it's Snoop Dogg, 50 Cent, and Anthony Anderson. So I'm like, and I immediately do an about face, go in the bathroom. No, I don't. I don't do that yet. I go in and I'm acting professional. And I'm like, oh, y'all made it to the callbacks too. Cool. I'm in here, Sacktown representing. So I'm looking at 50 like, I don't want your autograph, dog. Yeah, I bounced that up in the club, but fuck that. We in competition. So I got attitude. So my name gets called. I go in. I fuck up the audition. Yeah. Like my energy's off. Kathy ain't even looking at me. And that's one of those dentist tidbit wisdom when it's like, do you want to do another take? And I was like, nah, I'm good. Like that's my dumb ass. I was just like, nah, I thought I was head tripping 50 out there. Nah, I'm good. I'm out. So when she said it, it didn't click on me. It clicked to me after I said, no, I'm good. And I walked out. I was like, damn, that was my opportunity to do another take. And I fucked up. So now I'm not feeling good. I get downstairs, Ernesto's in the car, and I'm just like, dude, I fucked that up, man. I think it's over. And we're starting to drive back to the airport to Burbank, and my phone rings, and it's Kathy. She's like, look, we messed up the tape. Can you come back and get back on tape because we messed up your take? Like, it's not. And I was just like, yes, yes, I will come back. And I was like, somebody up there is thinking
a reprieve.
Right. So we double back. We bone out back to the place, and I go upstairs. And before I go in the bathroom. I do the exact same thing I did in Beverly Hills. Water on face. Sacktown's in the house. You know, this. Get back in character. Go in there. Get on tape. And Kathy's like, Chris, that was much better. Nice. That was a good take. So I was just like, whew, Kathy smiling. She gave me a compliment. Even if I don't get it, I know I came back and did better than what I did before. And then like another month goes by, I get a call from Joe, and he's like, yo, man, they're going to offer you the role for Bernard Alfonso. And I was like, no shit. He's like, yeah, congratulations. He said, I recorded the production meeting so you understand that it had nothing to do with me. It's like, and that was really good for me to see. Just even though we had the talk, like it's not show friends, it's show business. He had recorded the production meeting where they brought up the character, and it was a vote. Like they were like, who do you think it is? Here are our last guys that we have. And so when it got to Ivy, it was like Common got the most votes. And then when it got to Bernard Alfonso, it was unanimous. Everybody's like, Chris Holley killed it. And so when I saw that on tape, and this is after the fact, but when he told me, I was like, all right, cool. So I thought Kathy was going to call me like the next day. Another week went by, and I'm like, and Joe's not responding to my calls because he called and congratulated me. And then Kathy's like, yo, Chris, this is Kathy. I want to offer you the role of Bernardo Alfonso. Do you accept? I was like, I accept. After that, it was like Miss Crabtree and Peanuts. It was like, wah, 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 wah. I was just so excited. I was like, yo, and she was like, this is your trailer, and this is what you're going to do. You're going to have to fly here. You got gun training. You got this. You got all the stuff you have to go through. And I'm like, yeah, I'll be there. Whenever y'all call me with the tickets, I'm at the airport. I'm there. Thank you, Kathy. Love you. Click. Hung up. Run around my apartment. Excited as all get out. And that was that first experience. Like, and I will definitely say that I was spoiled for that being my first LA production, because to have the cast, Alicia Keys, Ryan Reynolds, Ben Affleck, Jeremy Piven, Pete Berg, Justin Bateman, Andy Garcia, it was like so many people, Taraji Henson, it was crazy. And Joel Edgerton, we all were together, but he put us in groups. Chris Pine, Maury Sterling. It was so many people in that cast. And because we were in groups, because we were kind of like a gang, we were kind of like Piven's gang, we all stuck together. Joe made it to where there was a period where we had to do things together just to get the energy right. And then he'd give us music that pertained to your character. And then we had to go to the Magic Castle, and Jeremy was at his training for the magic tricks he had to learn. So we all went. It was me, Common, and Joel, and Jeremy. So we'd all go together. And then it was like we'd hang out and they'd have a dinner. And this was all on Universal's tap. And so I didn't understand that was a part of the process, and that we were going to be together for the next 6 to 12 months, because you have to shoot the film, you have to train for the film, like gun training. You know, we're down there. We did like a month of gun training. And so you're learning all this stuff, and to see like Alicia Keys and Ryan Reynolds go at it, because they were seeing who had the most hand dexterity as far as unloading their gun or taking their gun apart and putting it back together and being able to shoot it. And Ryan was so pissed off. And Alicia was like, did you really think you beat me? Like, I'm a pianist. My finger dexterity is going to be off the charts compared to you. And so it was just funny to see that. And then we finally start traveling to Las Vegas to do shoots, to shoot scenes. And then we're up in Tahoe. and we're doing all these things. But it was an incredible experience. But that's what first put me on another level, and then to be able to have and not to be intimidated, because Common and I had gotten really close, and we're still close to this day. And Alicia had invited us out to dinner, and I thought she was inviting the whole cast because it was my first time ever working with A-listers. And so when, and Common's real name is Rashid. So when Ross came to my room and he's like, yo, we got to go to dinner with Alicia, we thought we were meeting everybody downstairs. And so there was a car waiting for us. And then we go to this restaurant, and it's just Alicia, her assistant, and her bodyguard. And we come into this Thai restaurant in Lake Tahoe, and we sit down, and I'm like apologetic immediately. I'm like, yo, Alicia, I'm sorry. I didn't know we were late. And she's like, no. I just wanted it to be us three because this is our first major motion picture together. And
nice.
Right then, like, it floored me. I was already a fan, but I fell in love with Alicia Keys that night. She's like, this is my first movie. This is Common's first movie. This is your first movie. And for her to be that thoughtful and to be like, hey, and we sat there for 2 hours and just had Thai food and talked about, philanthropy and things that we wanted to see happen in the world. And it took all the Grammys away, all the Erykah Badu stories, the West Side Connection stories with Raj. And it was just 3 actors just talking, and it was beautiful. And then it was like we get back to the hotel, and Ben Affleck wants to meet up to go gambling, and you're there, and it's a completely different concept, and I don't really key into it till I see other people react to it, because I was called the rookie with those guys, with Pete Berg and Ray Liotta and Ryan and Ben. When I hung out with them, it was just like, oh, come on, Rook, let's go gamble. And I'm like, whoa, Sacramento budget, Hollywood budget. I don't know what y'all playing with, and Ben was like, nah, here, you got to go big. And I was like, nah, and he threw me like $1,000 chip. And I was like, Ben, I know it's our first time working together, brother, but I'm the type of brother that will cash us into 10 100s, take 100, get 5 20s, and throw a 20 on that shit. And keep 900 for myself to go home with. So he laughed. He was like, nah, Holley, rookie, you gotta play all 1,000. I was just like, damn, dude. And he had stacks of money. So it was fun. I mean, I was spending his money, but we gambled all night. But it was those moments that you're talking, and then when you're on set and they're saying, hey, do this, or don't be so forceful with that, or just stay in character. Like Andy Garcia never breaks character. From the minute he leaves his trailer, he's that character all the way through. Joe could say cut, and he's still the FBI director. And it was interesting to see and to hear that Ryan Reynolds walks his character back until he's 8 years old. Like, he develops his character. Every character Ryan Reynolds has ever played, he can tell you their life from 8 years old till now. And that's how he develops his character and how he has, what he does. And so Taraji, taught me stuff. Like, everybody taught me something. And from that one, and so, and it kept going. I learned stuff from Ed Norton, from Colin Farrell, from John Voight, from Noah Emmerich, from Jim Sturgess, from Kate Bosworth, Kevin Spacey, like all these people that I got to work with, and you get that private time with, and you get to ask questions about, and you're like, okay, this isn't stuff that's taught in class. This is something that they've evolved, and this is what I gained from my journey, Chris, and this is what's beneficial to me, and this is what you can use. And even Katie Heigl, I was blown away by her kindness. Like, everybody was like, oh my God, you're working with Katherine Heigl. I heard she's like one of the most difficult people. And I'm like, I worked with her for 6 months, 13 episodes on State of Affairs at NBC, and Katherine Heigl invited the whole cast out to her house in Utah. She catered for food. She did things for the PAs, gifts. She was a sweetheart. But professionally, it was, and then she told us the story of what happened on Grey's Anatomy. Mm-hmm. And so that I was privy to the real story, and it made sense on why Rames the whole thing fell out the way it did. Because when you got it from the horse's mouth, you're like, oh, so that's what happened. But on camera or on set, she taught me so much just on not wasting film. You know, it's like, you know, and that's where where I started seeing organic energy when you had like 4 or 5 main characters that are heavyweights in their own right, and they find that energy. Like with Alfred Woodard, you know, it's like you're dealing with heavyweights, man, and it's like you're just trying to hold your own, but then they're kind of bringing you along, and then you kind of figure it out. And once you figure it out, the scenes get more powerful, and you're feeding off each other's energy, and you know when to say your lines, you know if you want to say something differently or a gesture or whatever, and it's completely different. That's why sometimes it's hard when you get people that come up to you like, "Yo, Chris, Dennis, give me this film," and it's like, yeah, you don't want to be in a situation where you have a veteran actor and they need you to be a certain way and you have no idea what they're talking about. You know, so that's, you know, Smoking Aces catapulted me. I went from there to New York to Pride and Glory, came back to Vegas with 21, with Kevin Spacey and Lawrence Fishburne. I've been truly blessed, you know, for the work that I've been able to do, and then to be able to be a series regular on an NBC Universal primetime show with State of Affairs with Katherine Heigl. It's been great. And then to be able to come back and work with, you know, independent filmmakers and producers and see the growth like Marcus Allen is doing with some of the movies, and seeing people like Dennis and Aaron Long directing and producing, and it's really good to see full circle, because that's where I think people get it misunderstood, because we never stop working, you never stop grinding. It's the people who do stop, and then you come back and they're like, "Hey, bro, hook me up," and you're like, "So, okay, what have you been doing? What work have you been doing?" "Oh, well, I was kind of waiting on you to come back." Like, nah, that's not what you do.
Mm-mm.
Not how that works.
So like
No,
the
not at
Jason
all.
Michael Fongs, the Roberts. I mean,
Jason.
there's so many cats, the Nathan Reedies, that cats that have just stayed on the grind. And you know, the opportunity's coming, but it's really about being ready for that to come. You know, when that opportunity comes, are you ready? Because it's coming. You know, Lori's making that happen. Lori's pushing things to bring those productions, that quality production here. Dennis has ideas. There's other people. Deion Taylor's done things in this community, and now he's made it. Joe comes back. We all try to come back and do something. But it's really about, are you ready when we come back?
Yeah.
When that opportunity comes, when that production comes, are you ready? Because if you're like, oh, snap, I want to get in it. And I'm like, well, can you hang with this person? This person's an A-list actor. Can you really hang in the scene with them? Because they're going to tell me if you can't. They're going to be like, nah, this person's got to go.
I will tell you, because you guys can't see it where you are. We got you too busy talking, but there's a string of comments that are coming in. And I will tell you that Nathan Reedy has been quite prolific in his comments.
So is he cussing us out right now?
Have to come back. No, he's got nothing but love for you guys, and he loves you so much that he can say shit to you that nobody else would say.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
An example is the day Nathan says that Christopher Glasco used his body for protein.
That's something Nathan would say.
That is definitely Nate.
That sounds all Nate. Love you, Nate, dog.
Making comments all through. So it's obvious.
Of course he has. Of course he has.
All love here is nothing but love here. As we found the other night, I swear to God, we could go on forever. And I think that we have laid some really incredible groundwork, both in this conversation, in our marathon last night. I've already made a couple of phone calls today just based on what we talked about, because I think that there's a lot more that we can do collectively that's going to benefit the greater good. And that's really what we're all about. And I was so excited to really learn that was where, both of you, your hearts lie in that.
Oh yeah.
Your hearts lie in the same way that I am, is that we are Sacramento, and we have a responsibility to do this right. And we're being given an opportunity, and it's been a long time that we've been asking for it. So I just, want you guys to stay on the team and be a part of it. Come back and have another conversation, because I don't think we should take this much longer, or people are going to have to go to bed.
Yeah, I get it. We could get long, but
the best conversations are after dinner.
Right.
So the best conversations are after dinner.
I can hear my dinner in the background, so yeah, it's about time for me to go.
And you guys have had a chance to have a cocktail. That's the great ones.
Right. So I got my mineral water. It's empty now.
And also, you mentioned Mark Italian. I just want to let you know. So on April 21st, we're dark. We don't have anything on July 21st. On July 28th, we have Sally Forcier and Marcus Allen. So we're going to turn the tables on Mark and let Sally interview him for a change. Learn a bit about, not only about her and her contribution to the community here locally, but as we all know, Mark is killing it, doing a lot of different things, stepping outside of his professional comfort zone to build a much bigger net, I think, for a lot of people.
Mark is doing big things.
Mark is really happy
he's
to
going to be a pillar. Well, he already is a pillar in the community, but I think the footprint he's about to leave in Sacramento is going to be a different kind of
pillar. We've already counted to him, when it comes to entertainment and things that he's proven himself to be just iconic at. His skills and his work as a producer are what we're going to see now. And on, that's coming up August. God, I'm so wrong.
28th. July 28th.
August 4th, because we're actually going to be having he and Sally the night of the Ballbuster film launch. So Ballbuster is going to be released on August 4th. We're going to be able to talk to Sally and Mark, who obviously were involved in producing that.
It's a funny movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris is in it.
I can't.
Yeah, I play the character Mobile in that movie.
Because coming up on the 28th, we have another really incredible interview. I got to meet this woman at an event earlier this year. Leah Latham is the production supervisor at Walt Disney World Animation.
Nice.
Disney Animation Studios, I'm sorry. She has been involved in everything, and her handprints are all over the Frozen products, the films, Frozen 2. She is an incredible conversation. I met her at a Women in Film group that Bex Francis had hosted because they actually are friends. They've had a communication and a relationship for a long time. So we have them coming in on the 28th. So to learn a lot more about the Disney family and what they're doing in their animation world, that'll be coming up on the 28th. And then Mark and Sally will be on August 4th. And I'm already wrapping up some amazing new speakers to come up for the rest of the month of August. So we just want to keep adding to this conversation. And we know that everybody we talk to has somebody that we want to see you have a conversation with, because loving on you guys and being able to listen in this voyeuristic way is just a really cool way of keeping everybody connected to moving down the same road. So please, thank you so much for both of you. I enjoyed last night. I enjoyed tonight. We've had lots of amazing comments and traction already. So I think without question, you have spoken really well. We want Sacramento to be a film destination that is to be reckoned with. And I think that your contribution and your influence, both of you, is going to help us get there. So
right on. Well, we're here for you, Lori. Let's all, and if I could leave you guys with one thing, is really, be supportive of the local community, but also hold yourself to a high standard. Like really think about what you're putting out there, or how much effort you're putting into your craft. Because think of it as like, if you're representing Sacramento, how would somebody from LA view what's going on? So
and be careful who you screw in the business. Be careful who you screw over.
Yeah,
Saying, things come full circle.
Right, and it
come full circle.
It definitely does, and you know, that's where I was like bringing up it's not even that I was bringing up certain people, because it wasn't a screwing over thing, but it's always funny, you know, you never know who you're going to see on your way up, and because sometimes people go faster than you, and then you see that you pass them up, and you see them as you're continuing your climb. And it was funny because most of the people that I looked up to in the area had eventually called me and congratulated me, and even asked me for advice and instruction on how they could advance. And I was like, man, I remember I used to look up to this dude, or I used to want to have what he had. And when you achieve that, it's just really, it wasn't, I don't look at it like work, because I love doing it. Like, you know, like tonight, talking with Lori and D, you know, like last night we talked damn near half an evening, and it was, you know, I called it church, you know, because it wasn't something that was forced. It was organic, like how this happens. And so when you get to those people, you want to combine and you want to move in a certain direction together. And I think that's where first Sacramento, we have to come together. And I think Lori and Jennifer, our film commissioner, are the type of leadership that we need to make things happen in this area. So, you know, it's gonna happen, and just understand they've been doing this for decades. So it's not about reinventing the wheel. It's about adding some oil to this wheel, and let's make it spin a little bit faster.
Yeah. Perfect note to end on. Again, thank you guys so much.
And go to Chris's fan page.
There's so many things that we could go into detail with, so we'll leave that for another day. But thanks again. I love you guys.
Thank you. Love you too. You guys be good.
Thanks.
All right. We're gonna sign off. Everybody.